Morgan Geekie said last night's win over the Nashville Predators is the kind of game you'll remember when your career is over. Let's talk about what made this win so special following a crazy travel day for the Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, Ian McLaren. I am a lifelong Boston Bruins fan, and I've been covering this team and the NHL for nearly 20 years. Today is Wednesday, January 28th, and on this episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, we are going to break down last night's thrilling overtime victory over the Nashville Predators, a game that came on the heels of a wild travel day for the Boston Bruins. Took them way too long to get back from New York following their overtime loss the previous night. We'll talk about all the storylines, the stats, and the signals from this one, because it truly was a pretty wild day and a game in which the Bruins really needed to grab that extra point. We'll take a look at the updated Eastern Conference standings a little later on, as well as Hampus Lindholm being added to Team Sweden at the upcoming Winter Olympics. So, let's begin with the key storylines from last night. Quite the grinded out win for the Boston Bruins. Despite the literal and metaphorical storms, the Bruins managed to pull off a 3-2 overtime victory against the Nashville Predators, despite coughing up a 2-0 lead in this one. Let's start with the travel chaos. So the Bruins were in New York on Monday. They lost in overtime after coughing up a third period lead, and it seems like a pretty simple trip to get back to Boston from New York, but their flight was canceled. They were forced to travel from New York by bus, arriving back in Boston around 1:30 p.m., just about 6 hours before puck drop. They had team staff at the airport digging out player vehicles so that they could get home for a brief rest before having to head to the rink to get ready for the game. And they also had team chefs who met them at the airport with food so that they were well fed and energized for the game. So that's crazy. Like, to get back to Boston, 1:30 p.m., a bus ride. I mean, a lot of us used to the bus. These guys, it's not something that they've done since their days in junior or in the AHL. But to not get a lot of sleep, I'm sure, to have to drive back to Boston and go home for just a couple hours rest, not really getting your regular game day routine, it can have an effect, right? But David Pastrnak was the night's MVP, and I could argue he's becoming an MVP candidate in the NHL once again. Like, if the Bruins make the playoffs this season, I don't see how you can leave David Pastrnak off your Hart Trophy ballot. He extended his point streak to 8 games, and he ended the game just 15 seconds into the extra period with his 22nd goal of the season. Just a brilliant passing play all around for the Bruins, and Charlie McAvoy was able to get some space, put the puck out front, and David Pastrnak was able to bang it in for the game winner. Not to be outdone, though, Morgan Geekie continued his bounce back after a lengthy goal drought that saw him go 12 games and 1 calendar month without scoring a goal. But after achieving 33 goals last season, he has now scored 30 here before the calendar turns to February. Marks his second consecutive 30-goal campaign. He's on pace for more than that. And actually, David Pastrnak, there was a quote saying that he didn't collect Geekie's 30th goal puck because he believes Geekie has more in him, right? And he's going to collect the puck and give it to him once he hits 40. He's on pace for 46 despite missing a couple games a couple weeks ago due to personal leave, the birth of his son Max. He's only the 19th player in the storied history of the Bruins to achieve back-to-back 30-goal seasons. I mentioned the Bruins staff shoveling out vehicles, delivering meals on the tarmac as they got into their cars. Another big play by Keith Robinson, the team's equipment manager. He performed a lightning-fast skate blade swap for Murat Husnudinov, allowing the player to get back on the ice just in time to help set up the game-winning goal. And like I said off the top, Morgan Geekie said, these are the games we'll talk about when our careers and stuff are done. To get a 3-2 overtime win over the Nashville Predators, nothing super memorable, but it's the circumstances that led up to the win. The fact that they were coming off a back-to-back, crazy travel day, 3 points in 2 nights to keep themselves well alive in the Eastern Conference playoff race. A lot of adversity being faced, and Geekie said it would have been easy to throw in the towel, make some excuses, but it speaks to the character of the group that they know nothing's going to come easy, and they work for it. And so far, they've been able to exceed expectations this season. Pastrnak echoed that, saying that's what makes the win special. The way they grinded it out, did it together as a group. Good teams come back, and we responded well. It's also a testament to, the fact that they lost after giving up a lead in the third period the previous night. Facing this adversity, these challenges that came up, trying to get back to Boston, and Marco Sturm said he was actually very happy and proud of the group. Nobody was complaining. They just did their best possible. A little bit out of your control. Just have to grind it out a little bit, and they were able to get the win. On Morgan Geekie specifically, Marco Sturm said, you can see he's enjoying the game again. That's the biggest thing. He is a happy camper right now. We don't know what was going on with him over the last month. Perhaps there was some stress that came up with the pending birth of your second child. You have a partner who's at home, 8-9 months pregnant, dealing with another little one, the stress that comes with welcoming a new baby into the mix over the holidays, etc. Like, these guys are human beings, like we discussed not too long ago with respect to Linus Ullmark and his leave of absence from the Ottawa Senators and how he was rattled from being traded to Ottawa. To have a new child, a toddler at home, a partner while you're traveling and trying to balance that work-life whole thing that we all struggle with at times, especially when you're on the road so often, it can be a bit of a challenge. So it's great to see Morgan Geekie back. It's great to see him scoring at the highest of levels again. And 30th goal of the season, well on track to exceed what he achieved last season, which a lot of us thought could have been a bit of an outlier. But he's back. He's scoring at an even better rate than he did last year. And he is tied for the third highest goal total in the NHL with Jason Robertson and Cole Caulfield. Only Nathan MacKinnon, who's got 38 goals, and Connor McDavid, who's at 33, have scored more goals than Morgan Geekie this season. And it should be noted that he's got only 17 minutes and 17 seconds of average ice time this season, which is almost 5 minutes fewer than Nathan MacKinnon, more than 5 minutes fewer than Connor McDavid, and Cole Caulfield, 1823. Jason Robertson, 1956. He's got by far the fewest average amount of minutes. You have to go down to Dylan Guenther, who's got 24 goals, to get someone who is next closest to him in goal scoring. Pavel Dorofeyev with 24 goals, averaging 17 minutes and 37 seconds. Gunther's at 17 minutes and 18 seconds, scoring 24 goals as well. So Geekie's doing a lot with the time given him. He doesn't kill penalties. And perhaps, he had been down on the third line a little bit. Now that he's getting this chemistry back with Pasta, maybe he'll get some more minutes as we move forward. As we move forward here on the podcast, we're going to break down some more of the stats and the significance of the win, as well as touch on Hampus Lindholm now being an Olympian. All that coming up here as the podcast continues. We're about a month into 2026, and this is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. Thankfully, there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. And that's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo. Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number so nothing gets missed. It's no surprise that Quo is the number one rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnhl. That's quo.com/lockedonnhl. Quo, no missed calls and no missed customers. Thank you so much again for making Locked On Bruins your first listen every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On the number one sports podcast network. We need to talk right now about the new Everydayer Club that we've got going on around here. If you haven't already, go check out the details at lockedonbruins.supercast.com. You get an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Boston Bruins, which is compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, every other major podcast app. I use Pocket Casts myself. You also get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of the show. I'm trying to get more active on there. It's very fun to see a contributor posting mock jerseys after every win. Go to lockedonbruins.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. So the Bruins last night winning 3-2 in overtime against the Nashville Predators. You could tell that the Predators were perhaps the fresher team in this one. They did indeed have the advantage when it came to the underlying numbers in this one, as well as the overall shot stats. They had a 30-28 advantage, including 11-6 in the third period, where they completed the comeback. Nick Blankenburg scored at 13-17 of the third to tie things up. This was after Roman Josi had scored a power play goal near the end of the second period to get them on the board. It was David Pastrnak who took a 2-minute minor for slashing Roman Josi, and it was Josi who scored that power play goal. This came after Hampus Lindholm, Olympian, we'll talk about that later, had opened the scoring from Mason Lohrei and Fraser Minton. Morgan Geekie scoring his 30th primary assist to David Pastrnak, secondary assist to Jonathan Aspero, only his second assist of the season. The Predators went 1 for 4 on the power play. The Bruins failed to score on the power play, going 0 for 3. At 5-on-5 in this one, it was, I don't want to say all Predators, but very favorable in their to them. 50 shot attempts compared to only 36 for the Bruins. Shots were 22-21. Scoring chances, though, were 21-13 in favor of Nashville, and the high danger chances were 16-4 in favor of the Nashville Predators. The Bruins had 4 high danger chances at 5-on-5 and came out with a 3-2 win. In all situations, the high danger chances were 17-8. And the Bruins were able to capitalize on the one that mattered most, that being the overtime game winner. Expected goals in this one, though, were 4.12 in favor of the Predators, 2.36 in favor of the Bruins. It's a testament to the play last night of the goaltender, who for the Boston Bruins was, of course, Jeremy Swayman. 30 shots against. He allowed 2 goals for a .933 save percentage in over 60 minutes of play. Didn't face a shot in overtime, but came up big for the Boston Bruins because based on the underlying numbers, this one could have easily gotten away from them. The travel, the back-to-back, all of that kind of stuff really went Boston's way last night, and they were able to overcome it and get the much-needed 2 points to stay right in the thick of it in terms of the Atlantic Division top 3 race as well as the wild card race. The Predators, they're fighting for their wild card lives as well. I'm sure they were hoping for a better result, and the underlying numbers really suggest that they should have gotten a better result, but thankfully Jeremy Swayman stepped up, Morgan Geekie stepped up, and their best players last night were their best players. Morgan Geekie with his 30th, Pastrnak with the overtime game winner, primary assist from Charlie McAvoy, and Jeremy Swayman with a big-time performance in net for the Bruins. David Pastrnak is in 6th in scoring in the NHL with 69 points in 49 games. That's a 1.41 point per game average. There's a lot of guys with much bigger point totals. Connor McDavid's got 92. Nathan MacKinnon with 88. Nikita Kucherov, 80. You have Macklin Celebrini with 78, and then Leon Draisaitl at 74. For me, you have to consider David Pastrnak as a Hart Trophy candidate. And as always, I look at the gap in scoring between Pastrnak and the next highest Bruin, right? You have Pastrnak at, he's got 69 points. The next highest Bruin is Morgan Geekie, who has 49. So that's a 20-point gap between your leading scorer on your team and the second leading scorer on the team. When it comes to the other players ahead of him and the gap, the only other guy that has a bigger gap is Macklin Celebrini. And it's a pretty big gap, actually, and he really should be in consideration for the Hart Trophy. Will Smith is at 36 points for the Sharks, and Celebrini's up there in tied for, or in 4th in scoring with 78 points. That's a huge gap, much bigger than what Pastrnak and Geekie have. But when you look at the other guys, McDavid, of course, Leon Draisaitl is in 5th in scoring. Nathan MacKinnon, you have Martin Necas and Cale Makar, who are up there in terms of scoring. Kucherov, you have, they've had some injuries this season, but you still have Jake Gensel up there, Brandon Hagel, and then, of course, there is Draisaitl McDavid. So when you're looking at the biggest gaps between the leader in your team or league leader and the second highest guy on your team, the biggest right now, Macklin Celebrini. And for me, if the Sharks make the playoffs, he should be in the MVP conversation and may bump out Pastrnak, but he should definitely be in the conversation as well. Think about the Bruins without him. Not much was expected of the Sharks, not much was expected of the Bruins, but without Pastrnak, the Bruins are back in the lottery. Same can be said of the Sharks. So what Celebrini's doing this season must be commended, and he should get a nom for the Hart Trophy. But same with David Pastrnak. He's put this team on his back once again. He is thriving here in the month of January. This is kind of when he turned it on. Huge last season as well. Right now, you look at what he's done in January, 25 points, 5 goals, 20 assists, and it's his playmaking that is really leading the way. 6 assists, of course, in that win over the Rangers a couple weeks ago. David Pastrnak, for me, is a clear Hart Trophy candidate. We'll take a look at where the Bruins stand after that one, as well as Hampus Lindholm's Olympic nod here as the podcast continues. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for, where the predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, just bet $5 and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. You want to make this one count. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. It was a big extra point gathered by the Boston Bruins last night. We talked yesterday about a missed opportunity in New York, where they should have picked up the 2 points. Ideally, right now, we are looking at a Bruins team that has 66 points instead of 65. But this is where we're at. 65 points, tied with the Buffalo Sabres and the Montreal Canadiens for third place in the Atlantic Division, and holding on to the second wild card spot, a clear 6 points up on the Florida Panthers, and 8 points up on the Philadelphia Flyers, who they'll play tomorrow night, as well as the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Washington Capitals. If the Bruins had won the other night against the Rangers, they would be in sole possession of third in the Atlantic as well as the Eastern Conference in terms of point totals. Right now, they're sixth. Buffalo, Montreal gaining a bit of an advantage because they have played fewer games. Point percentage-wise, the Bruins are actually in seventh in the Eastern Conference. 65 points, a .602 point percentage, with the New York Islanders in 8th at .587. They've made some moves lately, picking up Carson Soucy from the New York Rangers. They added Andre Palat yesterday from the New Jersey Devils, so they're looking to solidify themselves as a playoff team, and they have the benefit of being over in the Metro. Right now, it really looks as though it's going to be 5 Atlantic Division teams in the playoffs, 3 Metropolitan Division teams. Only 3 Metro teams right now are in the top 8. That's the Carolina Hurricanes, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the New York Islanders. The Flyers fading a bit. The Capitals not able to replicate last season's success. The Devils already selling off, as are the Rangers. Blue Jackets trying to stay in the mix, but they're like 10 points behind the Bruins for that wildcard spot. And they are only 6 points behind the Islanders, and that's why the Islanders are looking to shore up to grab one of those spots. So right now, if it is that 5-3 split, the Bruins, it could come down to like the Bruins trying to stave off the Florida Panthers for that final wildcard spot. The Panthers, 6-4 in their last 10, 59 points in 52 games, a -9 goal differential. Bit of a cup hangover, perhaps. And they're really struggling right now. the Bruins have an opportunity to take advantage of that and continue to move forward. These two teams will play right before the holiday break, or the Olympic break, I should say. So that will be a massive game to keep an eye on for the Boston Bruins. The other big thing from yesterday was Hampus Lindholm. Day to remember for him. Not only did he open the scoring with the game's first goal, but he was officially named to Team Sweden's roster for the upcoming 2026 Winter Olympics in Milano Cortina. He said, anytime you put on your international jersey, doesn't matter what scenario, such a cool jersey, so much history tied to it, and it's going to be a great honor to be there. Now, another Bruin supposedly or hopefully going to the Olympics is countryman Elias Lindholm. He was actually injured in last night's game with an upper body issue and was not able to return. He's been very good for the Bruins, just scored a couple goals the other night. He was hit by Predators forward Cole Smith, went down to the ice, stayed on his knees for a moment before skating off under his own power, heading back to the locker room. 11 goals, 26 assists in 44 games so far this season. And he had 3 goals, 4 assists in his last 5 heading into Tuesday's game. And he too is on the roster for Team Sweden. So hopefully, he's healthy when it comes to playing for the Bruins. You always wonder, head injury in those situations. You have him potentially missing out on the Olympics, which would be a bummer based on how strong he played for Sweden at the World Championships. As of right now, Hampus Lindholm joins Charlie McAvoy, Jeremy Swayman, Elias Lindholm, David Pastrnak, Pavel Zacha, Henry Jokiharju, and Dan Schlock-Mellis as Bruins, who will be playing at the Olympics, which begins in just like a week or so, a couple weeks. Very excited about that. And we'll be covering that tournament and how the Bruins players are performing over there as Locked On Boston Bruins will continue daily through the Olympic break. That's it for today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, my friends. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. Tomorrow, we'll preview the game against the Flyers, bring you all the latest on the black and gold, update the Bruins barometer. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Bruins so you get all the latest episodes on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. You can find the podcast on TikTok and Instagram at Locked NHL Bruins, where I post the bonus reels. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is for you. Get Locked On Bruins ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to Locked On Bruins to join the club. LockedOnBruins.supercast.com, I should say. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Check out the National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel next, or NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL feed. All part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your favorite team every single day. Please do take care of yourselves, friends. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you again here on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.